What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel, and now we have Pathfinder 2nd Edition to talk about. The playtest is upon us. I'm sure most of us are halfway through our own campaigns or doomsday dawns or whatever it is we might be doing to dive headfirst into this wonderful gift Paizo has given us. And on the subject of that wonderful gift, if you guys have any specific things you'd like to see talked about in regards to the Pathfinder playtest, throw them in the comments. It's open season. We're taking all comers. But for now, we're going to talk a little more in depth about the ancestries that appear in the playtest. We saw them in blogs. We saw some of the things that they can do. Now we're going to take a much closer look. We're going to get a little more in depth. We're going to optimize a little, see what's good, see what's bad. And as always, hey, remember, if you like what you see, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Today, this episode of your Pathfinder 2nd Edition content was brought to you in part by Michael Baker. Michael, I'm picking you specifically for the shout today because there's some cool stuff going on for the ancestry we picked. It's a little on the divisive side from what I've seen, but you specifically have talked about it with me in our Samsarin video, so I think you'll like it. Oh yeah, by the way, first up, we're talking about elves. Let's get to it. So in Pathfinder 1st Edition, elves were more or less taller than humans, possessing that graceful, slender physique accentuated by long, pointed ears. In Pathfinder, they have wide, almond-shaped eyes that are filled with large, vibrantly colored pupils because, actually, elves aren't from Galarion. Elves are from Castrovel. Yeah, entirely different planet. Didn't know that until I started reading more about some Starfinder stuff. Watched some Starfinder videos over at IOPC. Yeah, whole new world. We'll get to that later in the channel, though. They came of age at 110 years and change. They had buffs to Dex and Int, minus to Con. But more importantly, they had a +2 on checks to overcome SR, and they had immunities to magic sleep effects with a +2 racial saving throw against enchantment spells, which is super relevant in the meta where the witch existed and you could turn the corner and someone would slumber, then coup de grace you. The elf was a little buffed against that. They also were proficient with a lot of weapons with higher damage dice / higher threat ranges that they could finesse. Think the Elven Curved Blade, the Elven Branched Spear. And hey, you know, eventually run up the Elven Battle feats, grab Elven Battle Focus. You could apply your intelligence modifier to damage. Not bad for the Elven Magus. In 2nd Edition, a couple things have changed. They still have that otherworldly grace because, you know, literally from another world, sharp intellect and mysterious charm that's magnetic to other races. And they're often pretty smart. But in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, elves reach physical adulthood around the age of 20, though, of course, their peers don't consider them to be adults till a little after 100 years old, you know, like 110 or so. Now, this might have been the case in Pathfinder 1st Edition. I might be missing something from some splat book somewhere, but pretty much everywhere I've gone, everyone I've talked to has assumed that elves just took a really long time to grow up. And it took them to around the time that a couple of human generations had gone by for them to, you know, hit puberty. Here, no longer the case. The elf comes of age pretty much the same time the human does, a couple years later, give or take, and that flips the lore kind of on its head. Again, might be missing something here, but now it's no longer the elf that journeyed with your father and has come to hang out with the human son, who he sees a bit of the father in and has to protect. No, now the elf is forlorn because the elf has literally actually grown up with people and reached adulthood at the same time. People, of course, meaning humans and other short-lived races, only to watch them die. Pathfinder 2nd Edition's elves live to be around 600 years old, which still basically tracks the 350 plus 4 percentage dice worth of years your elf could have in 1st Edition. But now let's talk about the mechanical stuff. Some of the stuff we talked about in the blog earlier. We did see some of the very powerful abilities an elf can get, but now, again, we've got access to everything that's available in the playtest, so we can take a closer look. An elf is a medium creature with a base speed of 30 feet, which makes it the fastest of the core races. You get 6 hit points if you choose to be an elf, and your ability boosts are dexterity and intelligence with, again, 1 free, with an ability flaw in constitution. Elves begin play speaking common and elven. They've got the elf and humanoid trait, as well as low light vision. Now here's something that's new. Maybe you hadn't heard about this one yet. This isn't necessarily about elves, it's about pretty much every race forever as of the playtest. The way we receive bonus languages at character creation has been overhauled. In Pathfinder 1st Edition, you received a bonus language equal to your starting intelligence modifier. Nowadays, at first level, if your intelligence score is 14 or higher, meaning if you chose to put 2 ability boosts in your intelligence, you get 1 bonus language. That of course makes esoteric languages, languages that might not ever be spoken in the setting, that much more, like I said, esoteric, and it makes your choice of languages a lot more important, because it's less likely that somebody in the party might have, for example, Sylvan, than it was in Pathfinder 1st Edition. The Comprehend Languages spell is looking a little more powerful. Now, as we know, at level 1, we get 1 Ancestry feat, and we get an additional one every 4 levels thereafter. All of the races in the playtest have access to 10 Ancestry feats. A lot of them are feat level 1, some of them have prerequisites. In the case of the elf, only one of them has a feat level greater than 1 at feat level 5. Let's break them down real quick. Ageless Patience, which allows you to spend twice as much downtime as usual on a downtime activity to receive a +2 circumstance bonus to all checks related to that activity, isn't bad depending on the nature of your campaign. Remember, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's broken down into encounter mode, downtime mode, exploration mode, and if you guys are spending a lot of time in downtime, for example, say if your GM converted Rise of the Rune Lords, or another adventure path that just had a lot of time in between APs for your character to craft magic items and stuff, yeah, no, Ageless Patience probably sees a little bit of play. It's not bad, but the Ancestry feat listed right under it, Ancestral Longevity, is just far and away one of the 2 most powerful Ancestry feats the elf has access to. We talked about this in the playtest, but I'm going to hit it again now that we know a little bit more details. During your daily preparations, you can reflect upon your life experiences to become trained in one skill of your choice. This proficiency lasts until you prep again. That's really, really powerful. We've seen the skills now. We know how proficiencies work. We know that if we're not proficient in a thing, it's d20 plus mod -2 trained, d20 plus mod plus character level. That's super relevant. If you're playing Pathfinder in a group of people that you don't know, maybe you just picked up a random group, maybe you met somebody at a game store who's putting a thing together, and you don't necessarily know what to expect, Ancestral Longevity is that much more powerful because, say you roll up an Elf Barbarian, you know, one of the greatest of all Ancestry class combinations ever, and you show up to a group of rogues and you didn't train stealth, well, you just rest and you've got it. It also, on that note, seems really powerful in something along the lines of organized play. Literally a pickup group where no one knows what anyone's playing until they sit down at the table together. Did no one train Nature or Arcana? It's cool. The elves got it. Demon Skirmisher and Forlorn are next. They're definitely a thing. They're what I would call sideboard tech for the Magic players. They're yellow feats. For those who read those old Pathfinder 1st Edition guides, much like myself. Demon Skirmisher lets your attacks treat demons' resistances as if they were 1 lower, and their weaknesses as if they were 1 higher. And if you use the stride action on your turn, so if you move then attack, you treat demons' resistances as 2 lower and their weaknesses as 2 higher. Forlorn, because, you know, you've literally watched all your friends grow old and die, grabs you a +1 circumstance bonus to saves against emotion effects, and if you succeed at the saving throw, it's a crit success, not just a success. Not bad, but these are definitely Ancestry feats that one might take and never ever see play out in a given campaign. If you never fight demons, if you never fight things that make you feel feelings, well, these aren't going to come into play. Next 2 are Keen Hearing and Nimble. Nimble's a pretty good choice. The elf is already the fastest dude in the playtest. Grab Nimble, your speed increases to 35. And if you really wanted to do it, you could stack that with things like the Monk class, the Fleet feat, say that 10 times fast, I'm really surprised I was able to say it the once without tripping, to be honest with you. To continue to raise your speed up, which in some settings can be super good. If you're the Elf Ranger and you've got Woodland Stride, you're already outrunning people. Now you're outrunning people in change, to say nothing of like big open battlefield that you need to stride around a bunch, outmaneuvering the bad guy, especially in a world where essentially everyone has spring attack and attack of opportunities are few and far between, is pretty darn strong. If nothing else, we all know the old adage, right? You don't need to outrun the dragon, just the dwarf with the 20-foot move speed. Boom, you've got it. Now, Keen Hearing brings up some rules we haven't seen yet, because the way things are detected has been changed. As long as you can hear normally, you can use the Seek action to sense unseen creatures in a 60-foot cone instead of a 30-foot cone, and you get a +2 circumstance bonus to sense unseen creatures within 30 feet that you could hear with the Seek action. In the playtest, much like everything else that we've seen, how perception works and your degree of not being able to be seen by the bad dudes exists in 4 degrees. Seen, of course, one understands, means that you can see them without difficulty, you can target everything normally. From there it goes to concealed, which might mean dim light, mist, in something that might obscure sight but doesn't provide like a physical barrier. All the way down at the bottom here we have unseen, which means you have no idea where that creature is, you don't know what space it occupies, you're flat-footed to it. Essentially, it's invisible. The Seek action would make it sensed, meaning you know what space it occupies, but that's pretty much it. When targeting a sensed creature, you attempt a DC 11 flat check. If you fail that check, you don't affect the target, but that's how you hit invisible dudes. That's probably strong enough to take on pretty much any character, especially if your GM likes stealth. You have a 60-foot cone to detect in, and if they get closer, it's better. You find that guy with 1 action, you make the flat check as you try to shoot him in the face. Seems good. Now, probably the strongest of the elf ancestry feats we can take, depending again on like the setting and whether or not you're joining a pickup group or society play, is otherworldly magic. You get an arcane cantrip, just handed to you. You can cast it as an innate arcane spell at will. The cantrip is heightened to a spell level equal to half your level rounded up. This is an innate spell, which is like a spell-like ability. In 1st edition, you're always trained at casting it, which means if you take something like Ray of Frost, which is a D8 now. Did you know that? Yeah, that's a cantrip. Whoa. You're rolling that ranged touch at D20 plus dex plus level. Super strong. You use your charisma modifier as your spellcasting ability modifier as usual. The barbarian and the ranger who do not have shield proficiency in the playtest could grab shield as a cantrip and be able to buff their AC when they need to go into melee, or, you know, when they're fatigued for a round and their shield's down. No longer the case. Message, Mage Hand, Prestidigitation are super good utility spells, or, you know, if you want to change your hair color, there you go. The cantrip is heightened again to a spell level equal to half your level rounded up, so at 20th level, the cantrip is heightened to up to level 10. The cantrip can be heightened all the way. Unwavering Mien is another one of those might be good, might not be good things. Of course, elves were immune to magical sleep before. Unwavering Mien hands it to you, and in addition, when you would be confused, frightened, or stupefied, never gonna escape it, for at least 2 rounds, you'd reduce that duration by 1. It's not bad, and honestly, I imagine those 3 conditions are pretty common in the average game. Maybe not confused, but frightened certainly. Stupefied, maybe. We'd have to see. I haven't seen the condition yet. I haven't been able to shout it all over Doomsday Dawn. Oh, by the way, follow this card right up here if you haven't caught up with our running of the Pathfinder playtest yet, because it is a blast. Last up, we've got Weapon Familiarity, and the only ancestry feat for elves that you can't take it first, Weapon Elegance. Weapon Familiarity lets you be trained with longbows, composite longbows, longswords, rapiers, shortbows, and composite shortbows, and you gain access to all uncommon elf weapons. For the purpose of proficiencies, you treat martial elf weapons as simple weapons, and exotic elf weapons as martial weapons. Elegance gives you the ability to apply the weapon's critical specialization effect whenever you critically hit using a weapon from the bow and sword group. Now, normally, The ability to gain that critical specialization is reserved for like the fighter at 13th with weapon specialization, weapon mastery at 3rd, barbarians get critical brutality, but something like a melee sorcerer or melee wizard who you want to have that ability, boom, right there. And for the record, the weapons you would gain proficiency with, now that, again, we can see them, we've got them on paper, and I have them on paper too. I actually finally got both my copies of the playtest book in. Super stoked, it looks great. Are the Elven Curved Blade, a 1d8 slashing, 2 bulk, 2-handed sword with finesse and forceful. Finesse, of course, allowing you to still use your dex instead of your strength on attack rolls, but you still use your strength. And forceful, just like a glaive, when you attack with it more than once on your turn, the second attack adds a circumstance bonus to damage equal to the number of weapon damage dice, and then the subsequents increase that by another +1. Super good. Right now, though, that's the only Elven weapon we see. Of course, there will be more moving forward, I'm sure, but Elves seem to be one of the most powerful races in the playtest to me. A free cantrip on a class that normally cannot cast is incredibly powerful. You can't overstate that. And the ability to show up in any group, in any setting, and be able to do whatever that group needs, be able to fill whatever niche that group is unable to fill with its current party makeup without you yourself having to sacrifice playing the Elf Barbarian. That is amazing. Just is a whole lot of fun. But what do you guys think about the Pathfinder playtest Elves now that we have our hands on the rulebook? Are we liking them? Are we liking Ancestries in general? And how are you building your elf for the Pathfinder playtest? That's all we have for today, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. Again, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. The next episode of your Pathfinder 2nd edition content, where we talk about how to build Gestalt characters in the playtest, drops this Saturday.